All right, well, welcome. We've got a pretty major announcement today for Detroit's future. One of the biggest equity issues in this country is that of gentrification. As cities come back, bring new businesses, bring new workers, it's great for the economy. But in too many cities in this country, the residents who have stayed get forced out. Either they literally have their low-income housing taken away from them, or the rents go up so high that people have to move out of the neighborhood they may have lived in for years. In the city of Detroit, we do not believe in that principle. We don't think anybody should have to be pushed out in order to bring new residents in. This city used to house 1.8 million people, and now we have 700,000. If we do this right, we can bring jobs and businesses back while protecting those who stayed here during the downtimes. And that's the central focus of everything we do as we continue to drive the unemployment rate down, to drive the poverty rate down. And you saw the numbers that came out a week ago. The poverty rate in the city has dropped dramatically over the last 5 years, and we're no longer the highest in the country. We have a way to go, but we're going to make sure that what we saw happen in Brooklyn and Washington, D.C., in Seattle, in San Francisco, what's happening now in Austin, Texas, that new jobs and businesses forced out longtime residents. We're committed not to have that happen here. And so from the beginning, our housing department, Arthur Jemison, Donald Renscher, and the whole team have set out to say, how do we prevent that? And the first thing is, you don't let the existing affordable housing expire, which happens in lots of places. And so we set out as a goal that we were going to preserve 10,000 units, that as these contracts expired, these subsidies expired, they didn't turn market rate as they did in so many other cities. So far, 4,000 affordable housing units have expired in the city. All 4,000 were renewed by the city of Detroit. Nobody was displaced. We've already preserved 4,000, and we've built nearly 1,000 new units. So we're nearly halfway to our goal, which we set out, that we believe we can bring a huge amount of business back to the city, and we can keep our residents in place if we can preserve 10,000 units, and we can build 2,000. And we need to do one more thing. We need to pass Proposal N, because we've got 8,000 vacant houses in the city that need to be turned back into someone's homes, and to bring our neighbors back into our neighborhoods. And hopefully on November 3rd, the voters will do that as well. So how do we get the rest of the way there? We need a huge fund. This is not cheap. Here is the truth. If you want to hold rent low enough that people of low income can afford it, but your housing costs to build are the same as every place else, you lose money. Nobody is going to build apartment units where the cost of building it costs more than they get back in rent. They'd all go out of business. And so the strategy across the country is there has to be a subsidy. Somebody has to pay that difference if we're going to have guaranteed affordable housing. There's no other way around it. And so we have put together a number of funds over the last few years, and City Council has been very supportive, particularly Council Member Mary Sheffield, in taking pieces of all of our property sales and putting them into a housing fund. But we needed a great deal more. And as we have so often done, we turned to our private sector partners. We have had no greater partner in this city in the last 7 years than Jamie Dimon and Jpmorgan Chase. They have invested in our schools, they have invested in our apartment buildings, they've invested in our businesses, they've invested in our neighborhoods. I think their investment is somewhere in the range of $150 to $200 million already. And Peter Scheer, somebody that we want to have come back to Detroit more often, is here, but they're announcing another $15 million commitment today in low-interest loans and grants. It's an extraordinary commitment. And then the Kresge Foundation, Rip Rapson and Wendy Jackson have been terrific, and now they're making another $10 million commitment in loan guarantees. Before that, we had $15 million from Flagstar Citizen and First Independence Bank. All told, We are announcing today $48 million. It is $48 million, isn't it? $48 million toward our overall $75 million fund. $48 million committed today. It gets us the money to move forward over the next 2 or 3 years and continuing to build. The best and largest affordable housing developer in America is LISC. And I am really pleased today that Maurice Jones has flown in, and we have the CEO of America's preeminent low-income housing organization who is running this and making sure that we are making the right investments, they're being managed properly to maximize how far those funds go, and to hear Ziegler's here as well from his organization. And so this is the way we're building the city's future. We're not making excuses, as there was 8-10 years ago. People would be kicked out of their homes when somebody sold a building to somebody who wanted more money. We're not making excuses. We're getting involved. We are preserving this housing, and whenever there's new housing, we're making sure 20% of that new housing is set aside for lower income residents, because people of all incomes should be able to live in all neighborhoods in this city. And we are making a major step forward today, and I want to welcome somebody who is familiar now to Detroiters, because every time he comes to town, the city of Detroit gets a little bit better. Jamie Dimon's right hand, Peter Scheer.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. It is great to be here, and we're here in large part because of your leadership. And I've had the chance to work closely with the mayor for nearly 7 years. And really from the beginning, it was his leadership and his relentless determination working with the whole community, with the business sector, with nonprofit, with community groups, which inspired us to get involved. And still inspires us today. In fact, the mayor talked about the neighborhoods. The first time I ever met the mayor, he pulled out a map and started going neighborhood by neighborhood, making clear that the future of this city and the backbone of this city and the heart of this city was in its neighborhoods. We have incredible partners, thrilled to join here. This is actually my first trip that I've gotten to take since March, so it's so appropriate and fitting. I also want to acknowledge my partner, September Hargrove, who leads our efforts here on the ground in Detroit, for her extraordinary leadership. As the mayor mentioned, when we nearly 7 years ago announced our $100 million commitment, we were motivated by not simply the fact that we had been part of this city for 85 years, but the spirit and the determination of the people of Detroit to chart a new course. And this was the first time that our firm, that Jpmorgan Chase, had ever done anything like this, bring the full resources, philanthropic and our lending capacity and our intellectual capital to support city's recovery, and we have never looked back. And we've been so inspired by the work of this city and by the resilience of the city in the face, particularly over the last few months, in the face of really trying times in which a lot of cities have not fared as well as Detroit. Last year, we increased our commitment to $200 million. So that's why we're here today, because we believe in the city, and we believe, as the mayor said from day one, in the neighborhoods, and particularly in times like this, to support black families who so often get left out of the equation. And when you talk about neighborhoods, you have to talk about affordable homes, because that is really the launching pad to resilient families, to resilient neighborhoods, to well-paying jobs. But access to the quality and affordable homes is not equitably available. So it's something that we have prioritized from the beginning, working with incredible partners, Invest Detroit and Capital Impact Partners. We've worked with to provide more flexible development financing. We've built capacity for minority developers through the Equitable Development Initiative, the lease purchase program with Sinair, so more long-term renters could afford the chance to purchase their homes. And of course, the great Sonia Mays, who you will hear from, and Develop Detroit, whose vision and work and efforts really have been such an integral part of this city's revitalization. And adding to these investments, as the mayor said, I am so pleased today to announce Jpmorgan Chase's $15 million commitment to the Detroit Housing for the Future Fund. This will be a combination, as the mayor said, of both philanthropic grant capital as well as low-cost lending to preserve more affordable housing and to ensure also that minority developers are prioritized to do the work. There is no more important investment that we can make to give more people a chance to fulfill their hopes and dreams and create a future for their families. Before I turn over the program to Wendy Jackson from Kresge, and let me say, Kresge, as the mayor said, has been an extraordinary partner and in many ways was really on the leading edge before many of us came on the scene. Wendy, you and Rip and Kresge deserve so much credit for where the city is today. But let me say one last thing. It's clear, as the mayor has said over the last number of months, we're at a moment in this country right now. I think it's a really important moment. We've seen the impact that COVID, this pandemic, is having on our most vulnerable communities. We see the calls for racial justice in response to far too many senseless murders of black citizens. We see the pleas to finally address the systemic racism that has held too many people back for far too long. And what's clear is this is a moment that requires all of us to reflect and summon our own resolve to do even more, to do better, to do our part to create a more just and equitable society. Each of us as individuals and each of us as institutions to do even more. And business needs to be an important part of that equation. We need to help address these long-standing issues of racial equity and access to capital and opportunity that we see throughout our country. And at this moment, there is no place I would rather be standing and no group of people I'm prouder to stand with than the leadership of Detroit and this community. So I thank you for allowing me to be part of this partnership, and I ask you to welcome Wendy Jackson.
Good morning, and thank you, Peter. We are really so grateful to have Jpmorgan Chase as a partner in this work here in the city of Detroit. And, you know, in many ways, this is a fitting time. This is the first time that I've been out of my home since the pandemic. And before I start with my remarks, I just want to take an opportunity to say thank you to Mayor Duggan and his team and the leadership at the city for how we've been able to navigate as a community through these, in many ways, trying times. So thank you so much for your leadership, Mayor Duggan. Again, I'm Wendy Jackson. I lead our work at the Kresge Foundation in our hometown of Detroit. This is a very important investment for us. We strongly believe that when housing is affordable, everyone wins and benefits in the city of Detroit. And so I'd like to congratulate and thank the partners that are involved in the Detroit Housing for the Future Fund. It's a privilege to join the mayor, his team, Peter, Tahira, Sonia, and all of the partners that have been involved in creating this significant investment for our city. At the Kresge Foundation, our mission is to expand opportunity in American cities. And in our hometown, we do this by backing a wide array of projects, and projects that ensure that Detroiters have a fair chance at opportunity. We firmly believe that equitable, affordable housing is so significant. It connects workers and residents to jobs, schools, services, and community assets that will enable them to thrive. And so under the leadership of my colleague, Aaron Siebert, who leads our social investment practice at the Kresge Foundation, we're very pleased to be able to join this partnership and announce our guarantee of $10 million to ensure that this investment lands in the community, lands in Detroit neighborhoods where it's needed the most. So thank you for the opportunity to meet the movement at this time, given everything that is going on in our country. I especially want to thank the partners, in addition to the city, Jpmorgan Chase, Detroit LISC, Develop Detroit, and all of the other community partners that have been involved in this significant investment. So thank you. At this time, I'll turn it back over to, I believe, Mayor Duggan, who will introduce Tahira.
All right, well, from LISC, please bring up Tahir Ziegler, who's going to introduce our guest to town. Tahir?
Thank you, Mayor Duggan. 2 years ago, we began this journey with the city of Detroit with their vision and their leadership. They were really committed to affordable housing, and how could they put together an affordable housing leverage partnership? It included the city of Detroit, LISC, and also the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. This coordinated effort was to protect and preserve and create new affordable housing units throughout the city. I want to thank the housing team at the city. We've been working together. It's been quite a journey. Kelly Vickers. I want to thank also Keegan Mahoney, Julie Snyder, Don Rencher, and also Arthur Jemison. And then on the MISHDA side, and that team, under the leadership of Gary Heidel and Chad Benson. So we've been working for 2 years on this. This fund, we want to thank the seeding from the corporate sponsors. They provided $20 million to seed this fund. And those corporate sponsors, you're hearing from a few today: Jpmorgan Chase, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Fifth Third Bank, Flagstar Bank, Ford Motor Company, Huntington Bank, Penske, and TCF Bank. With those funds, we were able to launch this fund, the Detroit Housing for the Future Fund. Why are we doing this work? At LISC, we've been in Detroit working for 30 years. We're celebrating 30 years here. We came in 1990. And our work has really resulted in around 6,300 affordable housing units across the city. Our investment has included $254 million and leveraged other partners, even ones you are hearing from today, into $1.2 billion into Detroit neighborhoods. But this role with the Detroit Housing for the Future Fund, it's a privately held fund. This fund will provide some flexible, innovative products for developers to meet the gaps they're seeing in the market. This fund has a couple of goals. One is to meet the demands of the developers, but also to provide affordable housing to Detroiters. And we're targeting Detroiters between the incomes of $20,000 and $40,000. And we know when you have an income of $20,000 to $40,000, housing can become a burden. And so it's so important that we make sure that we prevent displacement, that the residents are able to stay in the units that they're in, that we're updating units that for many years have been under, I would say, needing repairs, and that we're also able to meet the demand for the next 15 years of housing. So this fund, I would just say also with our team at LISC, and you'll see many of them working on this project. I want to thank Victor Abla on our team, along with Brandon Ivory and Stephanie Ensign, and also on the national LISC side, the LISC Fund Management team with George Ashton. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our President and CEO for his remarks, Maurice Jones. Thank you.
Well, good morning. It is nice, Mr. Mayor, to be back in your beautiful city, and wow, what a beautiful fall morning here. I'll come back anytime. But it's nice to be back to celebrate and to help to launch this fund. So I will do two or three things. One, I do also want to add my thanks to all of our grant partners, to all of our low-interest loan partners, and to Kresge on the guarantee. Housing is a team sport. Revitalization is a team sport. You cannot do this well unless there's a team, and LISC is humbled and delighted to be part of this team. And really, Mr. Mayor, I want to also just thank you for your leadership in pulling us all together. Now, housing is much bigger than housing, right? I will second that emotion. This is about the health and the wealth and the prosperity and the security of residents of Detroit at the end of the day. Housing is the means that we're talking about here, but the ultimate aspiration is to preserve and to create assets that help people with the things that they're trying to get done in their daily lives, shelter and jobs and wealth and so on. And so that's ultimately what this fund is about, what this effort is about. We're going to have multiple products that are a part of this fund, different ways that we can help developers with different financial needs. So there will be pre-development grants and loans, assistance with capital needs. We have a Developers of Color grant for blacks and other people of color who are developers who need assistance to get projects across the goal line, so to speak. We'll have low-interest subordinate loans. We'll have permanent loans, mini-perm loans, low-interest preservation acquisition loans. So this will be a fund with multiple products that will fill niches in the market so we can get the preservation work done here and the new production work as well done. There is a website that's already available for applications and to answer queries. That website is DetroitHousingForTheFutureFund.org. DetroitHousingForTheFutureFund.org. Now, here's the main message. We still have $27 more million to raise. Am I right? And we'll take 30 if we can get that. But our goal here is a $75 million fund. We're at $48 million. And largely due to the help of our anchor tenants in Kresge and Jpmorgan Chase, we're well underway. But we still have more funds to raise, and we welcome more interest. We'd love to talk to more people about being a part of this journey. And now I want to introduce Sonia Mays, who's the president and CEO of Develop Detroit, has been since 2015, exactly the kind of developer that this fund will be working with. So Sonia, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Maurice, for that kind introduction. And let me start by just saying I am incredibly excited to be here among all of these committed problem solvers. Again, my name is Sonia Mays, and I am the founding CEO of Develop Detroit. It's a real estate development nonprofit. My nonprofit builds and preserves affordable housing in Detroit's neighborhoods. I got started a few years ago with the help of some of the same people that you've heard speak before me. Mayor Duggan's team, Jpmorgan Chase, the Kresge Foundation. They all understood how important it was going to be for Detroit to have special efforts to make sure development happened as equitably and as fairly as possible in our neighborhoods. Thinking back 6 years ago, I knew this work was going to be challenging. But in hindsight, working to preserve affordable housing here in Detroit has been difficult beyond anything I imagined. First, real estate investors have moved really quickly in Detroit to make early investments. We know what this looks like. We have all seen those examples of an apartment building being purchased, some renovation work being done, and then rent increases happening. This process has the potential to be particularly pronounced in areas where seniors and regular working folks live. I want to just pause here and thank Mayor Duggan's team and his really committed effort to make sure that this is not Detroit's future. This process does not have to be the way that our affordable housing and our legacy residents are treated. And I am proud to have been working with his team and countless others to get ahead of this process as much as possible. Starting in 2016, we bought several apartment communities that were under threat of outside investor purchase. We put money into these communities for badly needed renovations, but, and here's a big difference versus what could be happening in our neighborhoods. Develop Detroit aims to keep folks' rent stable and affordable to them. That sounds simple, right? It definitely sounds like what most legacy Detroiters want in their neighborhoods. But here's the catch. For the most part, real estate works like any other business, where the goal is to get more revenue than you have to spend. Except in housing, the revenue is the rent that residents pay. And in Detroit, it costs more to renovate an apartment building than can be paid back if you commit yourself to keeping those rents affordable. This is the dreaded funding gap that Mayor Duggan mentioned earlier. Before now, my nonprofit on average would spend 2 years pulling together the financial resources needed to close this funding gap. 2 years. We could, at that pace, we could only do 2 to 3 projects at a time because getting all of the capital and subsidy you needed to make it all work on the timeline was really like managing a jigsaw puzzle up in the air. You just could not believe the enormous amount of time and effort that goes into solving the funding problem for affordable housing in Detroit. If I'm being honest, it's actually discouraging at times. Discouraging because with more capital, with more flexible capital, organizations like my own would be able to do much more affordable housing much more quickly. With better tools, we'd be able to keep people, far more people in stable, high-quality housing situations. So that's what I'm really excited about today. Today is the next step in this evolution led by the mayor's team and his commitment to taking down the barriers for our neighborhoods. Today, developers who care about affordable housing and inclusive neighborhoods are getting a powerful new tool. It's not just something that I suspect or I'm wishing for. For the past several weeks, I've actually been working with the local Detroit List team on using the new Detroit Housing for the Future Fund. I can't say much about it yet, but so far, this new fund has allowed my Develop Detroit team to double our ability to preserve affordable housing. That's huge. There are several communities that we have wanted to make long-term affordable and just did not have the right financing tools. This new fund is filling a very important gap for us and for those who believe in affordable housing for all. On behalf of all of the committed community leaders, I want all of the committed community leaders that are working on the ground, I want to thank everyone who spoke before me for this amazing problem solving, doing it in a real way, and continuing to invest in the future of Detroit.
Okay, so for right now, we're going to show a brief video that will introduce you to some of the Detroiters who are going to be benefiting from a program like this.
I've been here in the Morningside community since December of 2006.
I've lived here for just over a year, maybe a year and 3 or 4 months.
I've been living here for, I'm gonna say maybe 6 months now.
To live in affordable housing has given us the opportunity to be able to raise our children in a safe environment, in a community-based environment.
We have 5 kids and we have enough space for them all. We have 3 that are autistic and they need their space to play, and so they have the space to play.
There are a lot of people out here that need affordable housing because they don't have that much money.
Quality affordable housing means that there is actual windows and doors to that home. There's a furnace that's actually operating, running water. That's quality of a home. Safe haven for children.
too many people throughout the United States and here in Detroit are spending way too much on housing. It should be 1/3 of their income, and most people are spending half or more of their income, which means they can't afford the other amenities that they need.
The city is partnering with some community development organizations, and we're looking at all types of housing that will fit the residents who want to stay in the city of Detroit needs. And I'm happy to be part of that, sitting at the table, having those discussions.
Opportunities like this not only get families and people off the street, but it gives people an opportunity to be able to come in, live comfortably, and be able to save to possibly buy later, you know, and that's the ultimate goal. You want to own.
Hopefully you want your children to see, to understand the importance of affordable housing in an urban city. And you want your children to be able to see that there is hope and that there is an opportunity for all people of classes, race, and color to come together and live together in peace and harmony.
Making this kind of commitment to affordable housing is new to Detroit, but if you were in New York and you had an announcement with Maurice Jones from Lisk and Peter Scheer from Jpmorgan and Wendy Jackson from Kresge, this would be a big deal in New York. To have it in Detroit is really remarkable, and we're really pleased to have all you here. And with that, we'll take any questions. All right, this seems like the single biggest thing. I have to do one last thank you. So on Friday, we shut down the State Fairgrounds COVID test site and it moved to the Walker Center. But that testing center was without a doubt the single biggest factor in driving down COVID last March. And the person who made it responsible is here today. It's actually Peter Scheer, because back in March, when there were only 100 tests being done a day in the entire state out of the state lab, and I wanted to buy capacity from BioReference Lab in New Jersey, which was the only one doing it, and they were selling all their capacity to New York, and their CEO wouldn't come to the phone when I kept calling his secretary. I called to Jamie Dimon and Peter Scheer, and I said, we are being hammered by COVID, and we can't even test to know who's infectious and who's not. I said, you happen to know BioReference Lab? And they said, you know what, we're their banker. An hour later, the CEO of the company was on the phone, and within 3 hours, we had a signed contract, and it really triggered the fastest response in the country. And so we have partners who don't just write checks. We got partners who are very much involved in our lives. And while you're in town, Peter, if you need a test, I can get you to the front of the line. With that, it looks like we do have a question.
Good morning, Mayor. Quick question. When you talk about gentrification, do you see it happening already in the city?
You know, the Federal Reserve ranks us as about the lowest in America. So the definition of gentrification is people of higher income push out people of lower income. That is not happening in Detroit. Washington, D.C. is number 1. In the last rank, we're number 78. But it is only because of the efforts that you're seeing here. So every time you see one of these new apartment buildings, 20% of the units are set aside as affordable. And so when you're bringing new housing in, you're also bringing new affordability in. So we're committed every single case. The Fed's HUD gives you basically, as an apartment owner, like a 30-year loan tax breaks when you sign up for affordable housing. We are looking at which one of those contracts, let's say it was signed in 1980 or 1995 and it's going to drop off in 2025. Our team here is in the room now negotiating to extend that out to 2055. We don't wait till it's the last day and people are being pushed out. That's what we've done on 4,000 units. So, so far, we're having good success, but it's an everyday struggle, and it's a source of real anxiety. Detroiters all the time. When new businesses come in, are my rents going to go up? Well, of course, to the extent you have home ownership, it's a good thing. To the extent you're a renter, you want to know there's quality housing available to you, and it's my job to make sure it's there, and we're working really hard at it. All right, anything else? All right, thank you all very much.